Caron with me.
Yes, so Daddy Mark,
I was
did we
wondering
get?
what happened.
I think you got bumped off.
Yes, yes. I ran into a little problem there a little while ago.
I thought, oh my.
Hello?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay, great. I just didn't know that you're there. I'm gonna kind of deal it. I don't know what's causing it.
I don't know. That's what happens when you're doing the right work.
As always. So let's start.
Yes, you're back.
Yes. Okay, so there.
So are we starting?
Yes,
Like that?
we can start that. We can start that. Let me see if I can adjust my system here. You go ahead.
Okay, so we give all glory, praise, honor, and thanks to God. You know, that's the way I start everything I do, MacDaddy.
Yes.
So, you know, I just wanted to thank you and your listeners for joining us this evening, and thank you for this opportunity. And I just want to say good afternoon to everyone. I just forgot my manners there for a minute because of all the interruptions. I just, lost it for a while. So, I want to thank you for giving Project Red this opportunity to talk about the better path, which is adding value to all life by adding values to your life. So it's all about the values, and you played the right music there just now. You started with the right things. Who to blame? That's the first thing we do when we start talking about what is right and what is wrong. We always
Yes.
quick to put the blame on somebody else. But, as is it Michael Jackson? I think the late Michael Jackson, he sang that song, I'm looking at the man in the mirror.
Yes.
And that's the place we need to start, with the man in the mirror. Because, when we think about the human nature, we think about conflict, and we think about, getting in fights. And I forgot who is the singer for that song, Who to Blame. But he said, fighting generates more animosity.
Yes, that's crazy.
That was crazy.
Yes.
It sounded like him, but I wasn't sure. I didn't want to say the wrong thing. Yes, and then there was that other song you played there, One Life, One Law, One Land,
Yes.
One Race. And he emphasized the one race is a human race,
Yes.
and we all have a right, or we all have the duty or responsibility to treat each other, regardless of what we look like, or what we sound like, or how tall we are, how short we are, what our voices might be like. We all have that responsibility to treat each other as brothers and sisters. So you really chose beautiful songs this evening. And of course, that last one, none of that, none of anything that we do would be worthwhile, or, would bear any fruit unless God blesses it. And who God bless, nobody can touch.
That's correct.
So thank you so much, McDaddy, for choosing the right songs to set the mood and the tone for the show this afternoon.
I'm
So,
grateful.
sorry?
Yes, I'm grateful, and that's the problem. That's the back.
So, I just want to start with a little introduction from something I had written. I think I sent part of it for you. on
Yes.
values, and the title of what I had written was called "Paying Attention to Values." It talked about people, all of us. So it comes back to what he was saying: one life, one law, one land, one race, the human race. And all of us walk this path of life together, regardless of who or where we are. And all our actions affect each other. Doesn't matter how far away we might be from each other, or even if we are right next to each other. If you do something, rest assured it's going to have a ripple effect, and it is going to affect somebody else along the way. So, for example, when we think about the US, we know the US, the closest place um, we are to the US is in Florida. It's about 1,600 miles away from us, right? But the trickle effects of US gun policies, the manufacturing, the ownership, all of these things are manifested when we see an influx of illegal guns and drugs on our tiny island. And once we get that happening, so they made a change in their policies, or they may not be as strict about certain things, or they may be allowing people to manufacture more guns, because I mean, guns is part of their culture,
Yeah.
and not necessarily only for violent, or criminal acts, but they use it for hunting and all sorts of other things. But so they make a change with their gun policies, and what happens down here, we get all this extra guns available, and then that leads to higher murder rates and higher rates of missing people, and generally we have an increase in crime and violence. So the actions of the US, which is so far away from us, is affecting us, and not just us, but internationally, all over the world, we would see some kind of effect because of the actions of one nation. On the flip side, so there I was just talking about the negative effect, but on the flip side, we get lots of benefits when we get foreign medical personnel coming here to share their skills, their expertise with our doctors and with our patients. So, for example, I know my father many years ago benefited from a program where we had foreign doctors coming down to treat with patients who had heart problems. We know about doctors coming to treat with their eye patients who have problems with their eyes. Magdali, I'm getting feedback on my end. I don't know if you are getting that.
Yeah, I'm trying to correct it so that my IT looks correct. But you keep.
Oh, okay. All right. Thanks. So we can be assured that there is good and there is bad, and whatever religious group you may belong to, all these different religious bodies proclaim victory of light over darkness or good over evil. And these are what we call inescapable dualities. And they exist. And because they exist, it means that we, being blessed as God has blessed us with a brain, we have the ability to make choices. And those choices we make could be good choices,
Yeah.
or they could be bad choices. Now, as human beings, we think that we are higher than animals when it comes to intelligence. But when you're faced with choices, it seems that there is something more than intelligence at work, because when you look at the relationship between a pet, let's say a dog, and his owner, there have been so many stories and photos circulating, or videos even, where the owner might die and the dog stays with the owner until somebody comes to move the person away. Or
Yes.
if a child is attacked and the dog belongs to the family or belongs to the child who was attacked, the dog immediately takes off to try to protect the child with no concern for what's going to happen to him. Now, we don't see that kind of compassion even with some humans, right? So it's more than just intelligence. There is something else that governs our actions and the things that we do, our responses to different situations.
Yes.
And I'm sorry to bring up this, but remember that tragedy we had in Paria with the four divers, right?
Yes. Yes.
There was a call to prevent those, to prevent not those, but to prevent professional divers from trying to rescue their trapped colleagues in that barrier tragedy.
Hmm.
And that is an example where we had intelligence and respect for life being overruled by insensitivity and a lack of compassion. Because I would think that every effort would be made to save a person's life, a human's life. And, I'm even talking from my own experience with my dad when we did everything possible when we found out that he was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, I think it was.
Yeah.
It was liver cancer. I didn't know at the time. I was still reading up a lot about it. But by the time you hit stage 4, I mean, it's almost inevitable that, you're going to pass shortly. But at that point, before we even knew it was stage 4 cancer, we tried every avenue to try to keep my father alive. So, it's more than just your level of intelligence or your level of education, I should say. It's something more than that. It calls for compassion, it calls for empathy, it calls for caring, it calls for having higher than intelligence, which is what we're going to be talking about today, which is values,
Yes.
right? So, when you look at that situation with the divers, where we had average citizens coming out and sharing, they brought food, they brought water, they gave moral support, those were perfect examples of the virtues of compassion and kindness. When you have things like kidnappings, when you have murder, right? All of those things show envy, they show revenge, hatred, and violence. And in a brain that's supposedly intelligent, it shows us that there's something wrong, there's something not right. And something that's not right is making a wrong choice. It's not taking the better path. So the thing is, we have people who work to build us up, and then we have others who work to destroy. Now, I don't know what makes the difference. What are the factors that determine our choices? Yes, your level of intelligence and your common sense, as we put it in Trinidad. But when it comes to nurturing relationships and building families and creating safe, healthy, informed communities, that's going to provide a proper foundation for society. That's where values come in. And they don't just come into play, they are critical into building a functioning society and for producing young people or human beings or individuals who are human resources. And that's written into our Ministry of Education, our curriculum. So the qualities that could help us to develop or adjust our character positively are what we call our values. And a good value system should build and uplift you, the person who has those values. And
Yeah.
in building yourself, you build society as well. Now, way back in the 1840s, Horace Mann advocated for good character education in US schools. And he claimed that it was equal to academic education. Historically and culturally, we Trinbagonians, we used to pay great attention to values. And I'm using that used to pay because, I think that has changed over the years. Because
Tremendous.
tremendously, yes, we've had a lot of external influences. And, it's very easy, we come back to that song, Who to Blame? It's easy to blame these external influences
Yeah.
like transnational crime, like narco trafficking, the proliferation of drug cartels, illegal weapons, human trafficking, right? But it's more than that. We can't just blame external. It's internal because we have domestic violence on the rise. We have child abuse and sexual abuse. We have all kinds of things right here without even needing all the drugs and illegal weapons, right? So it's more than just about casting blame here, there, and everywhere. And I'm talking about crime because we are looking at moral decadence in the society. It's not new, but throughout history, global history, states and nations and all the countries in the world, all societies have always raised and discussed this problem of moral decay. But what we have found now is that we have different turbulences that affect the level of or the depth to which we have decayed morally. Now, if you look at in 2016, now you'll notice that my statistics going to be a bit old, and the reason for that is because it's very difficult to get updated statistics and reports on crime.
Yeah.
Now, there was a 2016 IDB report by Dr. Randy Sipasad, and what he said in that report was that crime is one of the leading social problems in Trinidad and Tobago, and it is one of the most important threats to public safety. That was since 2016. And even before that, since 2004, murders started rising in the 300s. Now it's up to 500 and something last year, I think it was.
It went up
That
to
was
600.
600, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was a 5% decrease from the year before.
Hmm.
And they project that, I think, 2025, they're looking at 700, or 2030, I can't remember the exact year. They're looking at 700s, right? So that's a lot. So the idea is that we have an upswing in crime and violence, and that upswing in crime and violence is reflected in an upswing in all other wrongdoing, all other things, not just crime and violence. We have an upswing in corruption. We have an upswing in a lack of respect generally, not just a lack of respect for life,
Yeah.
but generally a lack of respect. We have an upswing in look at the situations in schools over the last couple of years, in the last couple of months,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's actually I don't know. I haven't seen much for this year, but it could just be because I'm not as fit as I used to be. But we've been seeing so many fights, and the fights have increasingly involved female students. So
Yes.
it's not just male students anymore. Excuse me. Now I have to tell you why I'm coughing. Just a little break from the seriousness.
Yeah.
So I'm coughing because your good friend is currently roasting pepper.
Oh.
Your good friend is preparing dinner and roasting pepper to go with it.
Oh my God.
So I'm going to apologize. I might be coughing every so often.
I hear you. I hear you.
So, and I'm sure my listeners are intrigued, and your listeners, not my listeners, your listeners are
Our
intrigued.
listeners. Our
Our
listeners.
listeners,
Yes.
and of course, I'll tell that later on, maybe.
Hmm.
So, we're looking at this upswing in all this negativity in our country, and
Yes.
if there are attorneys among us, the attorneys will tell us that not only must justice be served, but it must appear to be served.
Yes.
I don't think we even have that appearance.
Hmm.
I think we've reached the stage where everything is just out there now. Nobody's afraid to do anything. They are just doing. So we see people storming houses now, a lot of home
Yeah.
invasions.
Yeah.
I mean, I looked at two. My mom sent two for me to look at last week, Friday.
Yes.
And the first one, I was palpitating. I was afraid, I was traumatized, and yet I couldn't take it off. I had to look to the end to see what was going on, but I was afraid at the end of it. I'm sure if I checked my pressure, it would have been sky high.
Hmm.
And then there was the other one where they just walked into the lady's yard. I mean, she had no fence, yes, but I
Yes.
mean, that's no reason to just walk in, grab her bag, take her car, and drive away with it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That's not the Trinidad and Tobago I knew as a child. And I'm
Nice.
sure that's not what you knew.
Yes, I tell you, sometimes I often wonder where we dropped the ball, where we went through the cracks. I try to understand the initiation of this kind of behavioral patterns that we are seeing now. And
Yeah,
it's really concerning.
it is concerning. And, if you go back a bit, I mean, I don't know the full history of it or anything, or the root cause necessarily, all the root causes. But if you look back to the time of the oil boom,
Yeah,
right, when, there was a lot of money flowing in the country.
yeah.
But even though we had all that money, we still had a big divide between those who had and those who didn't have. And you
Yeah.
saw it right here. I mean, like, I think anywhere in the world, if you go and you go to a nice big residential area with lots of big houses and, everybody's well off,
Mhm.
right next door to that is going to be a squatting area.
Yeah, so
And
true.
we had that here in Trinidad. And so, the young people in those areas would look on at
Hmm.
what is happening, and they would feel a sense of injustice. Again, it comes back to justice must not only be served, but it must appear to be served. you
Yeah.
know so I'm not giving them right for doing those who commit crimes from those areas. I'm not giving them right to do it. I'm just saying, this is some of the things that precipitated it. So, you had the gangs beginning back in those years of the oil boom.
Mhm.
And during those times too, you found a lot of parents were leaving, and we had what we call the what was it, barrel children.
Yes, the barrel children.
Yes, I think that's what we call it. So,
Hmm.
you had a lot of them growing up without, yes, they were getting material things because their parents would send back things, but uh, while growing up with grandparents, and you would know this, growing up with
Hmm.
grandparents is one of the best things that could happen to a child, honestly.
Yes,
Apart from your parents, your grandparents.
it is true.
But if a grandparent cannot afford it, one, two, has many grandchildren to look after, it is inevitable that some are going to fall along the way or through the cracks, as they say.
Yes.
So we found that was happening during that oil boom period. Lots of inequity, and gangs started arising, started drawing the young people, and then guns started coming, the drug trade started building, and from all there, just things just started moving downhill.
Hmm.
So the thing is that what we, I'm not saying that, if you want to justify wrongdoing, that's not what I'm trying to do. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to show that there's a need for us to embrace what we call core values, things like integrity, compassion, kindness, honesty, peace, love, and a whole host of other values that
Yes.
we can manifest in the way we behave with each other.
Hmm.
So, the choices that people make, the choices that one individual makes, impacts many other individuals. And it begs the question, how can we make valued choices if we don't know what proper values are, if they are not deliberately introduced to us, right? And some people, when I first started talking about values, most of the people, when I talk to them about it, they say, "Oh, this is a program for young people."
Hmm.
And I will say, yes, it is a program for young people. But what is young? Is there an age to attach to young? Young isn't just a number. Young is about your level of emotional development. It's not just for the young, but it's for those who have not developed fully in areas that they should have developed to become useful, helpful, and to help build a society properly. So, I want to throw out a question now for our listeners.
Yes, please, our listeners.
So and even maybe to you too.
Yeah.
The question is, even if you never deliberately thought about your core values, right?
Mhm.
Think about values now. Did you What are some of the things that you consider your values? And just as a little reminder, sometimes we say things and we assume everybody knows what we are saying. But
Yeah.
your core values would be the things that you consider important or deeply meaningful. These are the things that will reflect all the choices you make and who you want to be and who you have become in life. So I want to invite our listeners to think about what their most important core value is. it,
Yeah.
it can be so many different things. It could be beauty, it could be sustainability. It doesn't have to be the usual things we talk about, like honesty and integrity,
Mhm.
right? But think about the things that you value. Maybe you like to travel and see different countries. That is a value too, you know. So think about your core values, and I'd like, if you don't mind, if we could have them share. Some people share their values with us.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna put up some numbers on the screen for those who are looking on, and I will also let them know that they can call me at 222-8255, 222-8255, and share with us. I think it's very important that we dig deep within our minds and thoughts, and think about what it is that we can do, how we can help, how we can try to support whatever you see as of value to bringing about some change. I would like to start off with like respect, because I think respect has a new meaning now. Um, some people indulge in a kind of behavioral pattern in front of their children. I mean, you'll see very young parents doing those kinds of things. The children will look on and mimic all those behavioral patterns and then display it among their peers. So I think that respect for a person, respect for office holders, and I say office holders, and I put it in inverted commas because some of the office holders are also very disrespectful. Now, sad to say that because sometimes what they utter, I mean, when the election comes around, what you hear these people on platforms saying about and to other opposing forces and that kind of stuff. I think there should be some level of or some sort of mandate that they too should follow, because like you said, you're looking at areas where we have a nice residential area, and right behind the wall you'll find a squatter area and people and abject poverty and all of that. And these people look on and they will see what's happening and want to be like that. They want to have the same thing that these people have. And that could lead them to get involved in all the negativities that you see happening now on a real regular basis. Sometimes I have problems going on the chats that I'm on. I'm on a chat there that, it keeps me very updated with what's happening as it happens. And it's sad to say there are more bad news than good news on this chat. But
Hmm.
doing what I do, I like to know what's happening. I like to be best informed when it comes to having a discussion on or off air. So I think respect is one of the core values that we should you know make it a challenging goal, because you have to search yourself too and see how you are behaving before you can talk about respect. And I also tie it in with discipline. They're like a twin to me. And we have lost so much. I mean, that era you spoke about in the boom days, and there was so much migration. A lot of people, because I used to work in the oil industry in Brighton, and ships would come in there for fuel cargo, and ships will also come in for asphalt cargo. And a lot of people young men, in fact, would jump on these ships and look for work first, jump on the ships and don't come off the ship. So when the ship takes off, they know this ship is heading to Miami or Florida or somewhere, and they will go through the ordeal of hiding away on the ship until the ship gets to where it's going, and they used that as a form of migration to the US. And a lot of people did that. Outside of that, a lot of people went the legal way. All right. So, well, the legal is the front door, and what those guys do, we call it the back door. So, a lot more the people went through the legal way because there were options for that kind of easy travel to America, even to England, but more so America. And leaving the children with grandparents. Some were lucky to be with grandparents. Some weren't so lucky. Some were either aunt or uncle or some good friend because I going out to try something, and once I get through, I will send this and send that. Beside the material stuff that they would send back in these barrels, I think what made a big impact and difference to the young people's behavior is media. There weren't cell phones and all these digital devices back in the day, but television was there.
Mm-hmm.
Television, just like some people would get, some child might be, given problems at home. They say, look, take the phone and go in the corner there and sit down. And, they'll use the phone as a device to keep them quiet and to have them engage in whatever they want to look at. It's the same thing with television. I think television was very, um, if I should say, hypnotic, because they were so glued into these stories and movies and shows that were all American, most of them American, and it created that sort of a liking to be that way. We started losing that Trinbagonian way of life and upbringing and all of that, and that replaced it. You
And you
know,
know what else with that too, Daddy Max? Sorry to interject, but
no,
before I forget the thought, when young people looked at programs like that, the programs they sort of what is it make having a gun and fighting, and the hero was always the one
yes,
involved with a gun, so
yes,
they made it look like something desirable,
hmm
you
hmm
know
that is so
and,
true.
and make them feel that they were invincible when they have a gun or a weapon, or when they could do whatever they want and get away with it.
Yes, yes, and I think that that time, that era
Hmm.
created the change. I tend to look at it that way, that era created the change, and then to because of people wanting to live a certain kind of life also, a lot of people who would have been babysitting or people who would, they say the villages to raise the child and all of that, that
Yes.
kind of charisma from people started falling away because these people, they too wanted to live a kind of way and to wear a certain kind of clothes and to do those kind of modernized kind of stuff. And to me, that allowed the children to not have that kind of parenting or supervision, that allowed them to just be able to wander into this kind of new lifestyle that they really didn't know anything about.
Yeah.
And I think that created a change with the young people because back in the days we were highly supervising. I told you we chat a lot. I told you I grew up with my grandparents, not with my mother and father. And I
Yes.
can tell people there were very little we could have gotten away with it.
Well, I think I must have been worse than you. Yes,
Yes, sir.
because I couldn't get away with anything or go anywhere or talk to anybody with my mom.
Right, right.
Yes.
So that kind of supervision,
Hmm.
some people were saying, oh gosh, they had removed is it corporal punishment from school, and you know, back in the days when I attended secondary, primary school, we had an assembly where there was not. I went to an Anglican school, although I was christened or baptized in the Catholic faith, but that's the school we went to. We went to a school that was closer to you, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, so we had to say a prayer. The teacher or the headmaster, whoever's in charge of the assembly, will walk through the lines. You had to be always hygienic. You had to take good care of yourself. They'll inspect your nails. They'll look at
Yes.
your hair, your uniform, your shoes. So there was that level of supervision in that era,
Mm-hmm.
and then things started changing with the people wanting to be like Americans. Some people even started talking like using Americans salvo and all kind of things. So
Yes.
so so the change that came around, and it was allowed. Some people was thinking of, you kind of discipline the child like that, and younger people kept making children, and
Mm-hmm.
they too needed supervision, but they were having children.
Yes.
So as a young DJ, I used to be seeing young parents bringing out their children, teenage children,
Hmm.
partying with them, drinking alcohol with them, smoking with them. And if you dare say anything, it's going to create a lot of problems. So those things were allowed to happen, you know.
Correct.
And I think the deterioration started way back then, and it just got worse and worse and worse and worse. With the digital influence, well, I don't know what's happening these days.
Well, you made some good points there, because when you think about it, right, where the first place for values education is the family,
Yes.
and then after the family, you think about school, and
Hmm.
then you have the church, and then you have friends, and your social circle, and then should be the media.
Yeah.
But during that period of time you were talking about, right, you kind of eliminated some of those in between there. So you
Yeah.
went straight from the child to the media. You
Hmm.
skipped out all those in between. So, you
Yeah.
know, naturally, if the child is missing that, then the child becomes vulnerable
Hmm.
and could easily be influenced by whatever is shown in the media. And in the same way, that's why we are doing this, because in the same way, we want to use the media now for positive influence rather than a negative influence.
Yes. Yes.
And not just, you made a point about respect, right? You said respect and respect for those in office. And then you made a point about, but when those in office are not um, showing respect for others, or respecting their own office by their
Yeah.
behavior. you
Yes.
know I'm glad you made that point, because it comes back to the question that people would ask, is a values program like this for children?
Hmm.
No, it's not only for children, right? Values, when you think about what values is, right, or moral education, it's about helping people to get a set of beliefs about what is right and wrong. And that set of beliefs is supposed to guide your ways of behaving, your intentions, your attitudes towards others, and towards the environment.
Yeah.
And if you think of it like that, it really means that it's a continuous process.
It
It
is.
starts from birth, and it is supposed to go on until you become an adult, until you eventually transition to, well, I'm a Christian, so I would say transition to eternity.
Yes.
So it's a continuous thing. And values is, when we talk values, is not just about young people,
No,
because where are they learning it from? They have to learn it from adults.
that's
How
right.
do we know? The song, one of the songs it started with said, one life, we
Yeah.
got to live it right.
Hmm.
By whose standard is it right?
Hmm.
Because what is right for a certain group of people, those who want to uplift society, will be very different from what is right for those who want to uplift themselves only and play down society.
That's right.
So the point is, if you want to teach the young people, you first have to teach those who are going to teach the young people. And you can't take it for granted that people know that we are all on the same page, you
Hmm.
know? And you see it in workplaces.
Yeah.
I'm sure if we wouldn't go into where you work in, but generally, any workplace you go into, right? You get new employees coming in, and you have to train them.
Yes.
You can't assume they know to say hello and to smile and to treat other people nicely, you know.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So it's all about that. But I find our listeners are very quiet. Daddy man.
Let me repeat those numbers again: 222-8255, 222-8255. We'd like you to be part of the program. I know there must be something that you are concerned about. There's something that, let me say, bothering you, some idea that you have that you can share with us. So feel free to call us at 222-8255, 222-8255. If you're on Facebook, you can send your comments. Also, to the program, and let's hear from you. Let's hear from you. Don't let Karen and I talk all the time.
Talk it out.
But I don't mind, because I know
I
a lot
don't
of
mind.
people that listen. There are
Yeah.
some people now. The situation right now, Karen, is that some people, via this new digital e-world, I call it, um, your number can be traced, and people can know where you're calling from and all this kind of thing. So a lot of people tend to not want to come out and give those kind of comments that they feel
Yeah.
might, affect them in some kind of social way. But I see a lot, and based on me traversing from Labrador to Port of Spain for years, plenty years. I've been to a lot of social events. I always go to the social events. I look on at my neighborhood. There's some little boys that I try to watch them closely. One in particular, he'll check me all the time, and I try to talk to him all the time. I don't like to talk to him like a daddy. I talk to him like his best friend. I always tell him I'm your best friend. Don't hide anything from me. And I sometimes I will tell him, don't disappoint me. So I try to keep him on his guard because he knows when he comes by me. Whatever I have, I will share with him. If I'm having breakfast, I will share with him. He'll come and help me do all kind of things, and I'll, share with him whatever I could do to share with him because I really want to see him follow a kind of path that will that he himself will appreciate down the road because there are lots of people because of the financial status, because of where they live and how the conditions under which they live, it sends a different signal to their minds. So they feel that
Yes.
they have to be defensive, and they want to stand up in a kind of way that people who will say, look at them and think, well, them poor, them are nothing, they will show you some resistance towards that. Because right at the back of where I live, there's a new squatting area there.
Hmm.
And there are a lot of people who I know are having problems dealing with the everyday life.
Right.
So the values that some people should try to initiate within, like you said, not the young people only, because sometimes at the schools, the teachers, some of these teachers, I don't know what they're trying to do or if they're really just having a work, like they say, they have a job, so they just concentrate on salary. Because there were times too, like I talk about that era, when you go to school, every teacher is your teacher. It's
Yes.
not my class teacher. I only have to listen to her. You
Mm.
crazy?
Yeah.
you know, Even
Mm.
the adult people who would be on the streets back in the days, if you leave home and you do anything that you should not be doing out on the street. They might either tote you back home or
Mm-hmm.
put some serious manners on you so that you have to check yourself and well, you can't do that.
Yes.
Now
But
people are afraid.
I was going to say that. You're correct. They're afraid.
Yeah, people are afraid of doing that. If
Yes.
telling somebody something, a youth, you might see them doing something really bad and you're afraid. Just like
Hmm.
teachers are now afraid to discipline children a certain kind of way. So
Yeah.
so I don't know. The kind of
So I.
values
Yes.
that we
Yeah.
should try to continue instilling in people, not only young people, in people, well, most importantly, the young ones who are coming up,
Yes.
you know.
But before I think I wanted to say this at the beginning, and I don't think I said it because I don't want your listeners to get the idea that you and I feel that we are better than anybody else. We are
Oh,
all works in progress,
yes,
you
of
know.
course.
And
Of
that's
course.
why we said it's not only for young people, it's
That's
for
right.
us too.
Yes.
We have to constantly
Mm-hmm.
remind ourselves, because I am guilty. There are times I get angry,
Yeah.
and I react in
Mm-hmm.
anger.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there's so many little things, but the idea is to constantly remind yourself that you have to hold yourself to a certain standard of behavior. You
That's right.
have to think about other people,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why. Do you mind if I talk a little bit about Project Rare and the
No,
project with violence?
you go ahead. You go ahead. Yeah.
So that's why you see Project Rare, which stands, of course, for raising awareness on the ripple effect of gun violence. Project Rare was founded by me. It's an educational, not-for-profit organization, and while it was really started in response to the gun violence I went through, it really is advocating against all forms of violence. But I've tried to evolve it over the years because I want even my language to be different. So
Mm-hmm.
rather than say advocating against gun violence, what I say now is that I advocate for peace.
Mm-hmm.
So it started out of my desire to stop the hurt and the pain and the emptiness that one act of gun violence caused in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I got inspiration. I want to share something. Let me just make sure I have it here correct. I want to read something for you and the listeners. This is not what I said. This is what another victim of crime said. And I just felt it just perfectly captured what happens when somebody fires a bullet. So, with a single bullet, lives change, people change, financial situations change, social circles change. And there's this whole middle place that a lot of people are left in. And that middle place can be filled with rage, confusion, depression, anxiety, despair, and a need for revenge. So, can you imagine? Yes, we have all these criminals walking around with these guns and shooting and killing every day, right? That's bad enough as it is.
Yeah.
But every time a bullet hits somebody, there is what we call the ripple effect. So, even people who wouldn't normally be violent,
Mm-hmm.
they find themselves in that space. I'm talking about secondary victims. I'm talking about vicarious victims, people who just saw it on
Yeah.
Facebook or something, and they have become familiar with that middle place, which is filled with all this rage, and it's like a hodgepodge of emotions, negative emotions. What are you going to do with it? You have to be able to find a way to manage it and deal with it in a positive way. And that's where the motto for Project Rare came from: transforming hurt into hope. You know, what are you going to do with all of that hurt and pain from one act of gun violence? And I mean, look how many we have every day.
Yeah.
So, I understand the anger and the hurt and the frustration and the everything, the fear, everything that goes with violence. But
Mm-hmm.
as a believer, my faith is where I draw my strength from. Because of my faith, I can have peace and I can have the courage to forgive,
Yeah.
right? I don't want myself to sound perfect. Huh? There are days when I have good days and I have bad days, but
Yes.
generally I strive for the good. And that faith is what helps me persevere, or help me, I should say, persevere throughout that difficult incident in my life. But even though I forgive and I had hope, I couldn't just sit down with it. What I had to do something with it for it to
Yeah.
make sense. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why I started Project Rare, right? In the hope of creating hope, not just for me, but for other people as well. And when I looked at what was happening, I mean, it wasn't just me. There were so many people, murders were and still are bleeding onto our headlines.
Yes.
Even when we had the pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
even during a state of emergency, even during the curfew, you know, crime was still a problem, and it is still a problem globally, not just in Trinidad.
Yes.
But the thing with Trinidad is because of our size, right? We are small compared to say the US. Anyway, we small, right? There's no denying that. But our average murder rate is something like, and this would have been like old statistics back in 2010 and so on, was 25.1 per 100,000 inhabitants, right? Compared to the average, the Caribbean average for the same time period was 20.9. Ours was 25.1. And the US average was 5.4,
Imagine.
right? Today, today is day 142 of 2024, right? 142 days have passed. And we have, if this is correct, I think I read this in the Express earlier today.
Mm-hmm.
We have, and it might be more now, 215, 215
Yeah.
reported murders.
Well, I have a I have a bit update for that. It's 224.
Oh my goodness. So
Mm-hmm.
look at that. And that was this morning I read that 215 and it's 224.
Yes.
And look at that. And when I did the calculation this morning, I took the 215 and I divided it by 142 and I got 1.5 times as many reported murders as days. So by now it's probably closer to
Yes.
twice as much, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So and what's sad too, Magdalene, and I'm sure you could confirm this one for me. We used to think about Trinidad and Tobago as a paradise, and then we stopped talking about Trinidad like that because of these kind of murder rates, and then we thought about Tobago like that.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
look at what's happening with Tobago now,
Hmm.
right? So
Yeah.
what I was reading, I think can't remember which one of the newspapers. Um, Up to 2022, they said that Tobago's murder rate was one third of Trinidad's. By 2023, it was a half. And now I think it is almost the same as Trinidad's because their murder rate is 22 per 50,000 people for the year so far.
And Tobago has
Oh,
about 60,000 people.
that's right, yes. So I remember, I think I was reading that it could be the news there. I was reading it. I don't want to lie, but I think that's where I got that information from.
Right.
So, during the pandemic and the restrictions we had for the pandemic, we did get a little reprieve from the gun violence. But as soon as the pandemic was over, the numbers started going up again.
Yes.
And I'll tell you this, in 2020, I don't know if you remember, in March 2020, the UN Secretary General, I think it was, called for a global ceasefire in areas of conflict, right?
Yeah.
And even though they called for that global ceasefire, numbers were still going up globally,
Yeah.
right? And now the reason I think they had called for that was during the time when they wanted to give all the vaccinations. So, they wanted to be able to send in vaccinations to areas where you had shooting and war and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But they didn't want their staff members to be injured.
Yeah.
So, and the sad thing is, yeah, the pandemic, it hurt everybody. All of us were left depleted in terms of economics, in terms of being traumatized, in terms of our health,
Yeah.
um, socially, in so many ways.
Mm-hmm.
But we all had to adapt and there were things we had to do to cope. People lost jobs, they had to become creative and become entrepreneurs. Some people just, as we say, they just fell by the
Yes.
wayside. It's
Yeah.
very sad, but that's the
Very.
reality.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And your station, I don't know if you were doing this. Were you using this before the pandemic?
No, it's after the pandemic we went online.
So this is what people all over had to do. We all had to become more technologically responsive,
Yeah.
and that's what Project Rare did with the Values Project. Because prior to that, I used to host in-person events talking about the ripple effect of gun violence. But when we couldn't go out, couldn't do anything, I didn't want the year to go by and Project Rare had done absolutely nothing. So I had to find a way, to become involved in still promoting peace and working against violence.
Yeah.
So the mission then was to create this video campaign. The objective was to get more positive messages being circulated, not just in but in the media generally. So Facebook is the main was the main social media that I used,
Yeah.
uh, but I was really hoping for more than that. Unfortunately, during that time, it didn't really get more than Facebook and YouTube.
Yeah. That's true. That's true.
But thanks to you and Power 102, Matari, we are
Yes.
getting a chance to reach more people with this.
Yes.
Um, so the idea was, we wanted to leave to make our mark. To not even our mark. It wasn't even about making a mark, to be honest. It was
Mhm.
really about contributing towards a more peaceful world,
Yeah.
you know, by spreading messages of, well, all the things we said before, compassion and love and kindness and all of those things.
Yes.
So the idea behind it was very well described by the first person, the first video that we had for the letter A. We decided we were going to do something called the ABCs of values,
Yes.
adding value to all life by adding values to your life. And Miss Candice Campbell, she was the first person who did the letter A.
Yeah.
She said, the project was all about spreading shared positive feelings and ideas using a simple method following an alphabetical journey. And that's how she put it. I found that was such a nice way of describing it,
Yes,
you
it
know.
is. Yes.
And it was a really simple concept. It was one video,
Hmm.
one person, one letter, one value, 1 week.
Right.
So it really was simple. And I remember when we did it, I'm a person, I like to use quotations when I'm doing things. So people who do writing to heal, which is another thing I started during the pandemic,
Yeah.
they know every session starts off with some quotation that's relevant. So and it's similar to you, I guess, but you use songs because you use media, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
the quotation I used for values was by Ralph Waldo Emerson, and he said, "What you do speaks so loudly that I cannot hear what you say."
Hmm. I
I'll
love
repeat
it.
it. I'll
Yes.
repeat it.
Repeat.
What you do speaks so loudly that I cannot hear what you say.
Hmm.
Yes. So, what do you think about that?
That's very. I like that. I think I'm gonna copy that in my mind. I would
Yes.
never forget that cliche at all. That is very impacting because I mean I witness it all the time. I like to be very observant, and
Mhm.
it helps to me coming on air and talking about certain things because we will be doing interviews with real intellectual people, and like you said, somewhere within the conversation they would forget to talk about something or they would not remember something. And I'll be listening so intently that I will ask the question for that missing space there.
Ah.
So that is very impacting. What you do sounds so lovely that you don't hear what you say.
Mhm.
You, even with the politicians and all of them, that's a very impacting statement. Trust me. Yeah.
Yeah, so they tell young people, for example, it comes back to this. You were making this point earlier where, respect in office, you tell young people, oh, you must respect authority. But
Hmm.
then you, as a parent, let's say,
Hmm.
you sit down there and you are ill speaking the teacher or
Yeah.
teachers in general, you know,
Yes. Yes.
how is the child going to have respect for the teacher if you're doing that? you know.
Yeah.
Or if you look at the behavior of some of our politicians when they show us, their meetings on TV,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you are telling young people to behave a certain way, but this is what you're doing.
Yeah.
So when they go to school, they're going to display that same type of behavior in the classroom,
Exactly.
you know. So what you do speaks so loudly, I cannot hear what you say.
Hmm. I like
So
that.
all of us are guilty, at some time. It's not that we're
Of
not just
course.
picking on certain people, we're all guilty. But the idea is, by having videos like this in circulation, it will help remind people that our words and our actions, even if they are not always in alignment, we
Yeah.
must always be striving or trying for them to be in alignment,
Yeah. Yeah.
because,
Well, it happens to me sometimes, when you're driving and stuff,
I was
some
saying the
people
same.
will give you some kind of drive that you forgot that you're
Yes,
trying to be this kind of person. And you
yes.
might, kind of anger might hit you one time, I think so. I try to remember that. You see, words and action, I try to practice a lot because I too made a lot of mistakes. I'm not afraid to say that.
Yeah.
And I've learned from a lot of those mistakes. And if I see instances like those little boys that I tell you about, if I see that, they unknowingly, doing something that I think can have a negative effect on them, I will ask, I will tell them about it. I would not be like this kind of teacher over them or their father, but I just make them recognize what they just did or what you should not try to do again. Because you have to be careful how you impart in that kind of values into the young people, especially the young people at that stage, because the mature ones, they apparently should know better. Some of them don't, surprising to say. Some of them don't. Some
Mm-hmm.
of them matured in an area that it's a habitual thing to behave a certain kind of way. The environment tends to create that. And yet, still, you'll find in some of those areas, we have some good ones coming out of those areas. So you can imagine what it takes
Mm-hmm.
for, because I know one of my colleagues who was a talk show host here, a serious activist for one of the political parties, and her family lived at the Beetham estate there, and her son became a big time lawyer. You know, when you think
Mm-hmm.
environment there,
Yes.
you could imagine what it took for him to stay concentrating and well focused to become what he came. You know, he
Yeah.
became a lawyer now, and he's going about, you know, with motivational talks to some young people. He go to school. He does all of that. But it's difficult even for some big people to
Yeah.
to to bring about change within them own selves. Far more to be an advocate for that kind of change. I know what I've been through. So I try my best. I said, David, your words and actions mean so much now. So that you have to be careful. Sometimes I tell you, sometimes I'll get some crazy driving on the streets that will send me up a wall. And I'll remember instantly, David, remember your words and your actions. So I will just take it down and say, okay, let our driver go his way or her way or whatever. But to how can we really alleviate those kind of problems? I mean, we talk about instilling values, we talk about respect and discipline and all of that. I always tend to think that something that we Trinidad is a place that would throw away real valuable traditions. You know, we have become so influenced by the American way of living, or let's say that world stage that offers a different kind of life to what is tradition to Trinidad and Tobago. I like some of the islands because they stay within their traditions. Even Tobago, you know,
Yes.
they try to maintain some traditions that work for them. There are a lot of brilliant Tobagonians, plenty. I know lots and lots of them, very brilliant. It will be surprising to know, well, how them so bright? Because when you think about the way they live,
Mm-hmm.
I remember as a young student in school, I went to play cricket there, and I was shocked to know that that is part of Trinidad and Tobago. I thought I would have gone there and see the same kind of settings that I see in Trinidad, but it was totally different. The nightlife was out, totally out back in those days. The people who were out were adults, and well, I was a youth playing cricket for school, so we had to get into the hotel or where we were staying as soon as it became dark. But when I looked through the windows, or if we had to go out with a teacher or with some supervisor, um, I used to notice that like Tobago shut down by all about no lights and people inside. I think that gave them the platform. While they're inside, they read, you learn. So they are brilliant. They became a brilliant bunch of people. And compared to Trinbagonians, I'm not taking away anything from Trinidadians, but to me, there are a lot of brilliant minded Tobagonians. And I think it's the environment that created that, because in Trinidad was a different ball game. We were looking at the American style of life and all of that, and threw away some real valuable traditions. I had an interview with some scouts. They're having a big uh, I shouldn't an excursion to Tobago where they're going to do scout things. But scouting, Girl Guides, Brownies, Boys Brigade, Sea Scouts, those were entities that, as a little fellow or a young girl, you had to be part of that. And I
Yeah.
think those were disciplinary, you know, entities that paved the way for the same values we're trying to talk about that are so important to the development of these young people. Now, all of
Mm-hmm.
a sudden, you had this is scouts. I saw them on the streets in San Fernando, and I said, "What scouts, boy?" So I made sure I found the leader, and I had
Mm-hmm.
an extent. What we are doing here, I gave them all that time also to talk about scouts. The guy was so helpful that he brought on commissioners of the different districts. So I had about 5 or 7 of them saying
Mm.
what happens within their own district and how they come together and how they do things together and the kind of a disciplinary way of developing the young people, the roles that they are playing to do that. So I was asking one of them from San Fernando. I saw exactly where it is in San Fernando. That's near the waterfront by Mbakade down at that end there.
Yes,
There's a
yes.
scout.
Mm-hmm.
So I was asking them, I said, well, compared to what's happening over the street, I try not to point fingers, and I'm no judge. Almighty God is the judge.
Yes.
So I used to ask him, how are you going to break barriers? Or how you going to get into that turf where we see that kind of life to
Mm-hmm.
influence young ones to come across and be part of this scouting thing? Now, he said there were problems with that. He wasn't afraid to say that.
Hmm.
But he said they will go around in a kind of way and try to encourage the youth to come into it and things. But you don't see the way he would like to see the youth gravitate. That
Mm-hmm.
ain't happening at all.
Oh.
We dropped those traditional values of
Mm-hmm.
having these entities in all districts. I remember as a little Cub Scout, we were camping out all over the country, and we would meet other Cub Scouts and we meet other scouts. And I even ended up all in the Boys Brigade. And we had a band that used to go and play in it. Like every sports, the Boys Brigade band would be called up to play. And it was a joy
Yes.
to see the whole village and all the different districts we went. Everybody will come out.
Mm-hmm.
I saw that on Sunday. Sunday, the Libre uh, Youth Club, the Libre
Mm-hmm.
Police Youth Club, they held a sports and family, the kind of thing. And the village came out in numbers, and it was well absorbed and people enjoyed themselves. And you didn't see anything negative,
Right.
because that is what I was looking at. If the youth fight, if they start a pelt bottle and all this kind of mad thing. But that didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I
That,
think we are responsible for allowing traditions to slip.
mm-hmm.
And they say making road for Guti to run, because we just allow things to happen and we feel that it will be okay tomorrow. I don't think that will ever happen.
No, I don't think so either. Daddy Mac, and even from a biblical perspective, I mean,
Hmm.
the Bible predict that things will get to the stage where men will be lovers of themselves and
Yes.
love of what is right and what is good, and we are seeing that every single day. It doesn't
Yes.
mean that we give up. We still have to try, and even if we look at you ask how do we do it apart from just teaching or trying to force the values down
Yeah.
somebody's throat, let's say.
Hmm.
This is just one way in which we could look at trying to, I wouldn't say that we will, but
Hmm.
that we can try to stop this decline in moral fabric of society. But there are so many other ways. Like, for instance, I think when it's gotten to the stage it is at now, right? Yes, you want to go back to traditions. It's going to be very difficult because, once
Yes.
people change, going
Hmm.
back, it's very,
Yeah.
very hard.
Very,
And
very.
the world has opened up so much that people are just looking to move in all different directions.
Yeah.
And you know how it is, one bad apple spoils
Hmm.
the whole bunch, right? So
Yes. Yes.
yeah, it's much easier to sink into chaos than it is to bring back the good.
Hmm.
That being said, when it's gotten to this stage, this is when you want to have exceptional law enforcement.
Yes.
you know I believe in trying to reform, but I believe also that you must have people accepting the punishment for the wrong that they have done. You can't want to pick up a gun and shoot and expect that nothing will happen, but that is what is happening now. you
Exactly.
know
Yeah.
and so we need strong law enforcement. That's one of the key things. And we could only talk and talk and talk, but I don't know how much that's going to change. But
Yeah.
you need that. You need to have programs, the community programs like that family day you went to.
Yes.
You need things like that because you want to draw the people back. I remember back in 20, I think it was early 2020, when I went to speak with the man who had started, I'm trying to remember his name now, I'm getting old, yes, who had started the Marabella Family Crisis Center.
Oh, okay.
And we were chatting and, we talking about all sorts of things, but this is when I was starting he was one of the inspirational stories in Hot Cocoa on a Rainy Day, the first book. And
Yes.
what he had told me is that he worked with the along the people along the line in Marabella. I don't know
Yeah.
if you're familiar with the area.
Yes. I know the year. Yeah.
Right. So he worked with those people, and it started off where they would just distribute food. He and his wife.
Mm-hmm.
They both passed away now. But back then they started off like that. But when he actually started going into the community,
Yeah.
he realized that it was more than that. People needed jobs.
Yeah.
Women, there were a lot of single women with children, and
Mm-hmm.
they needed a way to make a living for themselves. So
Yeah.
he started empowerment programs, right? And he in discussing it with him, he told me you need a magnet. His magnet was football,
Hmm.
right? So we need things like that to
Yes.
from community groups to draw back the young people, to draw even the not so young, keep
Mm-hmm.
them occupied in positive actions rather than negative things.
Yes.
You know, um,
Yes.
so the thing about it is that this is just one aspect of a multi-dimensional solution, or trying to solve the
Mm-hmm.
issue of crime and the decline in society.
Yeah.
And it comes back again to another biblical principle. Let me just see if I can find it quickly, but I think it's in First Corinthians chapter 12, where they talk about the body is one, but it
Hmm.
has many members, right?
Yes. Yes.
So we have all these different, if you cut off the ears, you're not going to hear,
That's
right?
right.
If you lose, you'd be surprised. My brother broke his little toe um, recently, and he came to me and he said, "Girl, I'd never realized how important this little toe is for my balance."
Of course.
So every part is important.
It is.
So
Mm.
it's not one action alone that will bring about this change. I mean, the change might never really take place. You know, it might be 180-degree change,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, but you to make any impact or any dent in this crime situation or in this decline that we are seeing,
Hmm.
we have to keep working at it. We have to keep trying something.
Of course.
Something must work or something must stick along the way.
Now, if you can get a lot of people to understand what we're saying, and let's say they come on board and they're on the same page, I think too it will also have a great impact on the people who are responsible for the negativities. Also, there are some people who glorify it. There are some people who make a lot of money off of it, and
Exactly.
if only we can attract that kind of participation, if I should put it like that, for people to say, well, okay, I'm going to really try, to look at their words and deeds also, and to because you have to look at this within yourself too, because
Yes, yes. Remember, we started off with that, looking at the man in the mirror.
yeah, because I ain't no saint,
I am no saint either.
you know.
You
So
know, one of the things most people don't believe about me, Magdadi, I think I told you this too, and you probably don't believe it, but I had an extremely bad temper.
mm,
There were big men and women who were sometimes afraid, and I'm saying this not with pride, I'm saying
I
this
know,
because it's the truth. They were
yeah,
afraid to say things to me because of my temper.
right, right,
And I'm small in stature. I mean, you've seen me.
yes,
I'm short.
yeah,
But I think they said the small ones.
yeah. Little axe cut out big trees. They say.
Yes. So, but it's something, you know, that you have to make the effort.
Mhm.
You really have to try hard.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes,
But
yes.
come back to a point you just made. It almost slipped me by there easily. But you talk about, you know, you want to get the numbers and to get it all comes back to what you said there. You know, the money, money
Mhm.
talks. And
Yes,
if we change, if things change positively, the money makers, you know, will feel threatened.
that's right. That's right.
So
And I
they're
tell you,
the ones who
African,
try to keep this as it is. They want the slide to continue. And as the
yes,
slide continues, the divide between the haves and the have nots is going to get wider.
yes, it is, and it is happening all the time now.
Yes.
I see it all the time. You see certain areas and an upswing, and like everything is hunky dory there, and then there are certain areas you want to know what is going on here.
Yeah.
The kind of scholar you see people live on that thing, it have you baffled
Yeah.
in this modern time too. But I think we should, like you said, we should continue. I try my best. There's so much I can do. I
Yeah.
try to stay involved in the community. I try to encourage government officials because I'm with the tour guides of the pitch league there, and it's not even easy, Karen,
Hmm.
to have a discussion of positivity, of development with these heads. They
Oh,
listen.
hmm.
They just listen.
Yes.
I've reached to that stage where all they do is listen because the development that I would like to see happen in that area,
Hmm.
I know what the spin off of good effects it will have on the youth. It will create a lot of youth employment, and encourage in entrepreneurship and that kind of thing. But they listen and they will just say, okay, Mr. McIntyre, that sounds great. That sounds fantastic. We have taken note of it and we'll get in touch with you. You see, when it reached to that stage, Karen,
That's when you know, well, yeah, let me just walk out of here.
yeah, I just
Quietly.
let me take the elevator down, like, no.
Yes. And you know, Magda, you just if you had gone in there with something else, some
Hmm.
other proposal that
Yeah.
will be much more financially beneficial to certain individuals, I wouldn't even
Yes.
say to the community,
I know. I know.
right?
Yes.
If you go in there with a project like that, oh yeah, you will get a lot of response. One, two,
Yes. Yes.
if these videos we're talking about, these values videos, were
Hmm.
videos with you know the kind of material I'm talking about.
Yes, yes.
If it's bacchanal, if it's,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
exposure, and we were at the top at one time. Trinidad and Tobago was at the top for pornography viewing, right?
Of
If we
course.
had things like that, you
Mm-hmm.
could bet that those videos would be widely circulated.
Yes, yes,
But when
yes.
it comes to this is too
Mhm.
I don't know what it is, maybe too good, too clean, too simple, too quiet, all those things,
I get real fed up sometimes. I say, David, man, just throw in the sponge here and continue doing what you're doing from another standpoint.
Yes.
Because you know what, the head of state made a statement one time that bothered me, still bothers me. You know, when he said he's gonna make the rich richer, so they're gonna help the poor. Well, I didn't understand that, and I still don't. I don't
Hmm.
know who can explain the definition of that to me to understand.
Well, I
Because
certainly can't.
I don't know. I don't know how, as head, you can say that because people are already seeing the big divide,
Hmm.
especially after the pandemic. That gap, like you said, has widened tremendously.
Hmm.
And the sort of commercializing via social media and all these devices, people want to live a certain kind of way. And if there's no provisions or no facilitation for them to gravitate to where they can earn or probably make a step up in their lifestyles, you will find the negative things happening. It will
Yeah.
happen.
Yes.
And to me, like it don't bother some people. You know, some people
That's
in the safe zone and it isn't bothering them at all. So I agree with you that we have to continuously try. You
we
know, so
we have
so
to be like that drop of water that's falling on the same spot on the concrete all the time
all the time,
till
all
it
the time.
makes it cuts through.
Yes, yes, yes. We have to do that. I will continue doing that. I always accept invitation from these social groups that will invite me. I don't ever forget. The moment they invite me, I don't even have to write it down. I will say, yes, I will be there. And I go, you know, and I am hoping that it can spread to other people who have some sort of influence. You don't have to be influential either. It's just to participate and contribute and support and encourage others
Yeah.
to do same. And we can have a nice little ripple effect, like you said, where
Hmm.
change is concerned.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's so difficult for some people to even find time to do something that can make some kind of significant change. You know, they're always on the hustle, like that eat their food, you know.
It's all about self, McDad. And
Yes,
that's
yes.
something I learned in a different context, but it's the same. It could apply here. I remember when I was going through all my PTSD, whatever. Um, what I found was the more I directed those, how I was feeling inside, internally, and I was thinking about, oh, this hurting and how it affected.
Yeah.
I wasn't healing, I wasn't going forward, nothing was happening. From the time I turned that attention away from me and started
Mm-hmm,
to try to help other people, that
mm-hmm.
was when my healing, my true healing started, you know?
Yes, yes.
So we have become selfish. We have become a selfish, angry society.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I
And
agree.
and I mean, even if we have reason for that, we
Mm-hmm.
need to try to look past all those reasons and try to get to something beyond, try to be the bigger people in these
Yes,
situations.
yes. Because sometimes when I get frustrated, I have a good friend. I see him on the system here now, Iwat Rajpal. He's a real community player also. There's another one, Renwick Campbell. There are a few of
Oh, I
us.
know Renrick. Actually,
You do?
actually, yes. Do you know that I was Renrick's form teacher, and
Is
I,
that that's why
I'm not
he's
second
such a
chanting
quality
under.
young man?
Oh no, I can't take that no credit. I think that's his family upbringing
Yeah, of course, because
and
his father and
community.
I, we went to
Yes,
school together, you know.
yes.
So when I started my mission with the Pitch Lake, I decided, well, I had started that organization way back in 1988 or 89 or somewhere there. But I got into the media, which I had always loved. somewhere in 91, 92, somewhere there. So
Yeah.
I said, I in Hanoi tie with this pitch league thing again. I gone. I left it up to other people who were of the executive and the operation of the whole thing. But then during the pandemic, when I saw it was falling apart and thing, I said, "Oh, no, I am going back into it." I
Right.
started it. So I didn't need a vote to get in. I just took the position as PRO
Very
and
good.
started to change the game. I started to
Mhm.
meet with ministry officials. We had a Zoom meeting during the pandemic and all of that. And then they had a meeting and they said, we wanted to be president. So in that little group, it's difficult to manage the group too, but in that group, I hold about four positions. I don't mind because they're not willing to be out there like me. I'm out there already. I come to Port of Spain. It's easier for me to access these or get some kind of audience with these heads. So I have took up that mantle. But Mr. Rajpal, and I have good support by some people, Elizabeth Bean, I'm seeing them popping up
Oh,
on
I know Elizabeth Bain, I think. Yes. We know a
so
lot of people in common.
you see what I mean? So
Yeah.
I just can't drop the ball. One of the Campbell's family, a senior person made in Campbell, she's now the manager of the Libre Nightingales Junior Steel Orchestra. They had invited me to a Mother's Day concert they had, and now they're having a thank you thing for Republic Day in September somewhere there. And I've already committed to lend my support
Oh,
to the max. you know? And but I will I just can't help it, Caron, that I always once it's that kind of community thing, I will lend my support. So what we are trying to do, Renrick and myself, and there
mhm.
are other people that are involved in other groups in the area. We are now trying to come to a force to reckon with. So we,
Ah,
we are looking to liaise with one another, team up with one another, and see if we can make a statement for facilitation for the development of the area because Libre was a little town, a nice
yes.
buzzing town,
Mhm.
with all the industries, the energy sector, and all different kind of things had Libre on top of a lot. Libre was more popular than Point Fountain, you know, but it was left to be to a degradation that is unbelievable. So I
Mhm.
said no. So am going to set up meetings with all of these groups to see if I can liaise with them to instill the same thing we are making the point on today. Values. We can't get nowhere unless we don't adapt to values. It is important. I
Yes.
I can't underscore how much is it. That is why I told you, let us have a series. I mean, this is the first one. I'm seeing some responses coming up and thing, but I know if we continue gradually, a lot of people will get on board, and we can make a statement.
And
Yeah,
we will make sure that we have some guests along the way. It
yes,
wouldn't just be you and I.
you're
And
right.
because
Yeah,
you want it to be dynamic and you want to attract different kinds of people as well.
hmm.
Um, there is something I'd like. Do you think we'd get any participation? But I'm going to ask. I don't know if it's okay to do it now. I'm going to ask our listeners to grab a pen or pencil and paper, or even do it on their laptop or phone. We don't need anything from them. I just want them to write down this so they'll never forget it. So, I want them to write down the word values, but not to write it horizontally, write it vertically. Put
Yes.
one letter on each line. So you put in V on the first line, A
Mhm.
on the second line, L on the third line, then
Yes.
U, then E, then S. And so it's an acronym for values that we came up with. And it's a
Yes.
nice way to help you remember what values are. So the
Hmm.
first thing is virtuous,
Hmm.
then affirmations that help you to live your best life, understanding that principled choices edify self and society.
That's fantastic. I
I
like
liked it.
I like it. I like it a lot.
You know, I hope you got it right.
Well, I'm very close to you, so I
You
didn't
will
write
get it.
it.
You
So
will get it.
I know
Yes.
you will send it to me. I know
And
that.
you could feel free to use it however you want without even saying where you got it from. You just use it.
Of course, of course. I mean, I tell a lot of people. Well, sometimes, well, you can testify to this. I mean, I've been down many roads. I mean, I was a DJ that enjoyed that DJ life. I got into the media. I've been involved in this, that, and the other. But something came into me at a spiritual kind of intervention. People say it's a divine intervention. They use those kind of words. But
Yes.
I live by the mantra, all man to their own order. So I try to understand your order. And if it's okay for I to mix my order with your order, well, cool. If that order is a negative kind of order, I said, David, you see that? You can't change that. So, if it's a youth, then I said, Mama
Mm.
could say, well, no, that is wrong. That is wrong. If I had to tell you that every day, 10 times a day, I will tell it to you. But I mean, there are some people that they say you can't bend a big tree. So I will say, David, keep away from that. But that happened to me. And no, I've been always like that. And I don't want people to feel that I make this big change. I was
Yes.
always like that from little boy coming up
Yes.
different. It's just that the life was offering so much different platforms for me to jump and jump and jump and jump. So I had a time. But a few years ago, even before the pandemic and all of that, it started kind of getting into my system. And then I met your mom.
Yes. I remember you said
And
that.
that spiraled into me getting to know you and your mom charisma. Well, I think that is when I recognize that you understand what is a divine inspiration.
Hmm.
I started to see things in just by chatting with the woman the very first time. I said, this sounding different. You know, there were times when I saying, David, you have to change, but you hear
What?
what this lady is saying. And then she told me about you. And when she told me about it, I said, my God. And then how you managed to go through what you've been through, you know, that time when you realized what divine, well, I know you probably were always that kind of a Christian person also, but
Um,
in that
you
particular,
know,
mhm,
David and Magdalene,
yeah,
like yourself, I have a past.
yes,
Yes, I was a Christian growing up. I
mhm,
had lots of ups and downs along the way.
yeah,
And I think that incident just triggered or sent me into a different direction, you know?
yes.
Yeah,
So that proved to me that this thing is no joke, this thing is real. So you better start harboring this thing and try to read more. So and try to get into it more and get into it more so that you can execute that kind of social behavior that you want to leave as footprints for others to follow. And for young
yes.
people to say, well, Mr. Someone always call me Uncle Davy, someone call me Mr. Davy. So now I have to play like a ball around the crease. I can't lose my wicket with no bad ball. I have to
Yes.
play the good balls very straight and make sure that I give it its respect so that they can say, well, yes, this is the way to go. And I will try to encourage. So I really can't drop the ball now. I'm,
No.
it, I told some of the ministry officials, I am fed up. I resign. And one day I got a call saying, we're not accepting that, Pal. I say, "Oh, this." So I say, okay, I'll continue. Some of the people who I meet with, they have said, well, no, you can't just give up. Even my daughter said, Daddy, you did too much. You cannot just stop. So
Right.
I am on a mission like you to help create that change, to help encourage, and to make some people understand their role because we are all blessed with gifts. Some of us have one gift that nobody else will be having. And then some of us are blessed with multiple talents.
Exactly. Yes.
So
Like
if we
you are.
could well, thank you. If we could recognize that, I think that's where um, we can start impacting on change. And I hope that the people who are bent on having things negatively done just for the sake of making money, I hope that they understand too that has a time frame, you know. You
Yeah.
know,
Hmm.
some of them
You
feel
know,
like they'll be here till the end of the
and
end. You
not only that, they think that when we transition, that they might be carrying it with them too. You know, the old people used to say that.
Yes, yes, yes. So
You know, I
until,
want to share something with you. This happened this morning. Huh? I went for a run. I usually go for a run on mornings, and
Mhm.
this morning I stopped to talk to someone, and they are well off from a very good home,
Mhm.
very well off
Yeah,
business people,
yeah,
and I was talking to one of them, and well, I was talking to the mother, and you know, we talking about values all the time, and we were focusing on those people who don't have and getting into crime. And yes,
yeah.
right, but criminals are not only those people. You know, we have
No,
criminals walking among us with ties, suits and ties, right?
yes, yes.
So this lady, her concern was, I mean, she's gotten older, and the husband, they're both older,
Mhm.
and facing health challenges and so on.
Yeah,
And at this stage in their life, their children are looking to grab all that they can get.
yes, yes,
So
yes,
it makes you see, look at the values they were taught. They were taught about the
yes.
value of money as opposed to the
Mhm.
value of relationships with people,
That's right.
you
That's
know?
right.
So it just comes back, ties in with what you were saying there just now.
Yes, yes, yes. And
So,
I sometimes
mhm,
I try to understand what's with all this. Um, I don't want to say greed because I know it has a word of a more impacting definition than greed, because it has to be something more than greed. That these
yes.
people will be well off, but
Mhm.
still not comfortable. They still look for
Want
more,
more.
and
Yeah.
by all means necessary. And
Yes.
some of the
Yes.
means necessary are not good ones.
Hmm. Correct.
So I'm hoping, I'm seeing a message here from Speaking the Truth to Power. They
Hmm.
say, congratulations, well done. A lot of the messages that I'm seeing popping up here are complimenting what we are attempting to do now. Now,
Okay,
I
good.
want more people, or let's spread the word that this is going
Hmm.
to be a continuing series. It would not be like every week, but I'm sure we're going to have a series on this as long as you're alive.
And yes.
I know you're going to make time for it. I know how important it is for you, even your mom and the people who you deal with. I know, and I have been blessed with a bunch of new friends that I think it's all part of that divine intervention. I'm having some new friends now who are conscious of stories like what you would tell, the goals that we set ourselves and try to make the place a better place and to help people to be better to their own self, because the
Yes.
influences around now, there are some people who want to do good in it. That's some little fellas and thing I tell them, don't let anybody influence you by giving them a gun or nothing like that. Don't tell them that nobody influence you to go and steal,
Hmm.
because down the road, your whole life will change. After the moment you start that, your whole life will change, and it's downhill you go in. It ain't gonna be no uphill, because the people who encourage these young people to get involved are mostly well-off people who would give them guns and drugs and all kind of thing, you know. But it's to their benefit and it's to the younger ones' detriment,
Yeah.
you know.
Yes.
So we have to continue what we are doing. I know we're
So
gonna chat and we're gonna set up another edition of this series. Karen, it's a series, you hear?
yes, yes, Daddy Mac, it's a series.
Yes. Yes, and you are the brainchild of it. I am
Well,
the supporter. I am supporting it. I am blessed with the option, my bosses, and they allow me to do things like this because they know the
and
value of it also.
I really want to express heartfelt thanks to you and to your bosses, because it's very rare, very very rare.
Yeah.
No play on the title Project Rare, but it's very rare to
Mhm.
find people giving selflessly like this for a project of this nature.
Yes.
You might find it for all kinds of other things, but for this,
Yes.
they usually say no.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
really want to tell you thanks.
Yes.
There were two things I wanted to do. I don't know how much time we have, if we have any time.
You had asked me to play a video. Would you like me to play it now?
Yes, I'd really like that. Thanks.
Okay, folks, all who are looking on, just take a good
So
look at it.
before you play it, this video is the first one in the alphabetical series of values, and it starts with the letter A, of course.
Okay, should I play now?
Yes, please.
Here we go.
Hi everyone, my name is Candice Campbell and I'm a freelance proofreader and editor as well as voice talent. It's my honor to be the one chosen to kick off the ABCs of Values video series because values are incredibly important to our everyday lives. They are the beliefs we hold about what is right and wrong, and therefore they inform our everyday decisions and actions. Let's say we value honesty rather than dishonesty. We'll then act truthfully rather than deceitfully. And we can also think of values as though they're the navigational instruments or measurements that ship captains would use to safely guide their vessels to their destinations. Without values, we're going nowhere fast. And I'd like to begin this alphabetical journey of ours with the value of authenticity, which has become a very, very popular term in recent times, encouraging people to stay true to their personality. But what exactly is our personality to be like? I actually like to think of authenticity in the original Greek sense of the word, which means to be of undisputed origin, not a copy, to be genuine. For me, authenticity is a daily reminder that before I have or anybody else has anything to say about who I am to be or what I'm to do, I have a God-given identity and purpose. God has created me in His image and likeness, with His nature and character, to do the things in the world that He Himself would do. And so since values are supposed to bring about the best in us and those around us, authenticity is important to me because it's a reminder that rather than being a curse to those around me, I am intentionally created to be a blessing.
So there we are.
There we were.
Yes.
I
Isn't
just loved having her kick off the series because her voice is amazing. Her
Yes.
enunciation is clear, and
Yes.
she speaks from a powerful, powerful perspective.
Yes. 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 So, what can I say? I'll ask the people to stay tuned for the next series edition of the series, I should say, and I
Yeah.
will promote it when we talk and put the other one in readiness for airplay. Um,
Yes.
so, but I'll constantly remind them of this series that we are going to do once I'm here and once you are there.
Yeah.
I know you will be there, and I know that I will be here.
Yes.
So we're gonna get it done. We're gonna get it done, and like you said, well, you are the brainchild behind it. You will, even if I get someone to introduce you to whoever it is that can help us co-host and
Right.
get the message across.
Thank you very much, Daddy Mac. And thank you to your listeners for listening to us.
Yes, it's been a pleasure. Yes, it's been a real pleasure. So we continue. We'll talk, and they'll know when you will be back.
Okay. Thank you, and God bless everyone.
Yes, Lynette, I'm coming for dinner.
Bye again, Choka.
Ay, ay, ay. Thank you so very much, Karen, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you. Bye bye. You too.
Okay, that's it for today's edition of Hard Talk. I call it a Trini thing on a Tuesday, and I had with me a very special lady, Caron Asgarali. And we did, our topic today was the better part, adding value by adding values. So until next time, God's willing, be safe and take care.